The topic given to me is about economic outlook and political outlook. In terms of growth rate, there has been a lot of hype in the media about it being 7.2%, 7.6%, or maybe even in the last quarter 7.9%, and this is higher than the Chinese growth rate, it's higher than many growth rates of many other countries. Certainly for a large country, we are perhaps amongst the leaders, but this is not enough. There was a time when we were satisfied with a 3.5% growth. That was during the period of 1950 to 1990, when we had adopted the Soviet economic model. As I've said many times in many places, and I'll say it here again, the Soviet model was totally unsuitable for India. It was entirely propaganda based. The communists used to say that there is no unemployment in Soviet Union, there is no poverty in Soviet Union, there is no inflation in Soviet Union. But today the only truth is that there is no Soviet Union. There is a breaking program into 16 countries. 16 countries is what's broken up. Now we know that there was no progress there at all. And when you compare countries economically, democratic, market competitive economy like West Germany performed much better than communist, authoritarian, socialist country like East Germany. Now of course they both have become one country. North Korea, South Korea, China before economic reforms and China after economic reforms, and same thing with us. The day we took to economic reforms in the early 1990s, we have been easily experiencing 7 to 8% growth rate. While it's commendable, but it's not enough. We need to grow at 10 plus percentage to really solve the problems of poverty and unemployment within a period of 15 years. And that's not difficult if certain steps are taken. Now, I'm sure that these steps will be taken because many of us are now, 2 years of honeymoon is over. And even within the party, we can be quite harsh in wanting certain steps to be taken. The Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, is a responsive person, despite all his reputation for being a hard person to get along with. He is one of the easiest to get along with because he appreciates bluntness and straightforwardness. And therefore, I'm sure that we will persuade him to make course corrections which are necessary in the economy to make it to grow at 10 or more percentage per year for at least 10 years running. Now, if you look at the Indian economic data at the disaggregated level, you find there are a lot of disappointment. Agriculture is barely above, barely plus. It's almost negative, positive. It's in a very bad shape. The small and medium industries have been facing a credit crunch and they are closing down. And the small and medium industries are crucial for us because they provide the employment for the semi-skilled workers of our country, and which is the majority share of the labor force. So we have to do something to see that there is a greater capital infusion into small and medium industries, and credit is available to them at a reasonable rate of interest like 9%. And that can be only possible if we ask Raghuram Rajan to go back to Chicago. So there is nothing personal about my campaign to send him back. It is basically his philosophy that the way to control inflation is to have high interest rates. It's like a doctor who says that the only way I can bring down the temperature of a patient is by killing him. And the same way the economy gets into a recession, definitely prices can be controlled. But it has affected the economy differentially. That is, the small and medium industries can only depend on the Indian banks for their credit. Whereas the large companies have access to international banks, their subsidiaries can provide them. And as you know, the rate of interest in India, the prime lending rate is 12%. Whereas in America, the prime lending rate is only 2%. And today, many people in America get loans from banks, come to India, and then they are informally lending money at 10% and making a huge profit. This is called interest leverage. And that's why high interest rates economies never succeed. And we have to be very careful about it, because some of this economics which talks about the direct relationship between interest rates and prices are very misleading and dangerous. During the Depression, America had a major depression in 1930. Why was it? Because economists at that time, before John Maynard Keynes came, said that if you want to solve the problem of unemployment, it is because of high wage rates. If you lower the wage rates, then the factories will employ more people, and therefore unemployment will be higher. But what happened is, when you lowered the wage rate, the purchasing power also went down. And since purchasing power went down, therefore demand went down. And because demand went down, therefore industries lacking demand had to wind up. And that's why the spiral of depression in the 1925 to 6-7 period led to the 1930 crash. And the same way, here also, if a high interest rate is there, you may bring down prices, but you will cause recession. And it already caused recession in the industry. And if you look at the industrial growth rates in our statistics, they are very poor performance. Certainly capital goods is growing very well, but these are capital goods produced by large industries which have access to credit from abroad and other places, or they have their own internal corporate earnings. So I would like to begin by saying that today the outcome or the outlook for India can only be rosy or robust if we go back to a lower interest rate economy. And in my opinion, that means 9%. And 9% rate of interest should also be for those deposits of individuals and households which put money in the bank for a minimum of 3 years. So term deposits should be 9%, and the rate of interest at which you should get loans should also be 9%. That is the only way to, in my opinion, to get a rosy outlook for our future. Then there is a question, why agriculture should be so badly performing? Part of the reason for food prices going up today has got nothing to do with the non-performance of agriculture as such. It's got to do with the fact that you have permitted, that is, the previous government permitted, and we have not yet scrapped it, forward trading in food grains. And forward trading has become very easy with black money. So what big industrial corporations are doing, many of them, are going to the market with black money and buying the product from the farmers at the wholesale level, putting it into cold storages, and then later on withdrawing it at the prices have risen. So you will see our agriculture prices are never steadily going up. It will be up, down, up, down, up, down, because of the profiteering taking place. So in my opinion, one of the first things we have to do is to abolish this power trading in agricultural products. But agriculture should be really the base of our economy. Because today we are the cheapest producers of rice, wheat, vegetables, and even milk. And we have enormous potential to produce large quantities of rice, wheat, and so on, if we gave focus to our agriculture. Because India is the only country in the whole world of large countries which can have agriculture all 12 months of the year. America for 5 months has so much snowfall that it cannot have agriculture. So to Europe and most of China. But India is the only country where you can do agriculture all 12 months of the year, which means you can grow 3 crops. 3 crop seasons you can have. And yet, only 25% of the country's agricultural land has more than 1 crop growing. It's an utter waste of our land, this fertile land that we have in the vast master. In fact, the arable land of India is larger than China's. And China is 3 times the size of India. Because much of China is like Tibet and the Gobi Desert and so on. And the arable land in China is only a little less than that of India. So with this huge potential, why don't we grow 3 crops a year? What does it require? It requires providing seeds, it requires providing water. Where is the water to come from? You don't get it in the rivers, then get it from desalination of seawater. All the agriculture in Israel is done by seawater irrigation because they are able to desalinate seawater. And such a simple technology which they have perfected, which we should, the whole coastline of Maharashtra, instead of all the time talking about drought and deaths due to drought and suicides, should have at least about 10 desalination plants along the coast right up to Karwar in Karnataka, and you will have so much plenty of water. If Tamil Nadu were to do the same thing, it can pump water in the opposite direction of Kaveri and flood Karnataka instead of begging Karnataka for water. So therefore, agriculture, there is nothing that we lack to become an agricultural power. The prices are very low. If you look at the price of rice, the basmati rice that we produce is 1/6 the price of rice produced by Japan and South Africa. And this can be exported. Same thing with wheat. It's 1/4 that the price of American wheat. Milk, we have 150 million cows. The average yield of a cow in India, with all its lack of nutrition, is 200 liters per year. But one Israeli cow gives you 11,000 liters per year. Now if 150 million cows start giving you 11,000 liters per year, I will have to come to this meeting swimming in milk. That much milk you produce. Pasteurize it, bottle it, and what is the price of milk in Europe? 6 times the price in India. Instead of paying subsidies to the farmers, we can do this. Now I am today a part of the ruling party. I am not saying that these are not things which are only for saying to you. But this is something that we in the next 3 years are going to focus on. How to convert agriculture into a globalized part of the globalized economy. And for that we will have to also struggle hard in the WTO to see that the tariffs that the Europeans and the Americans put are brought down, for which we will have to do some hard work or bargain. One more thing I will tell you about our land. The Indian Council of Agricultural Research conducts trials on production of crops. And they produce in the same part of India, as all that we live in, 6 times the yield the farmer is able to produce. The Indian Council of Agricultural Research can produce 6 times as much per acre as the Indian farmer. Why the Indian farmer cannot produce what the Indian Council of Agricultural Research or Indian Agricultural Research Institute produces? So here, when you just talking about outlook, I'm saying first of all, I'm building the argument that we have an enormous potential in this country. And this potential has never been utilized. In fact, it has been, because of our stupid policies or wrong policies, we have not utilized it at all. Agriculture was broken by the British when they found in 1857. The farmers had supported Rani Jhansi and others, and they decided to break the back of the agricultural community, and they recruited all the criminals and made them to zamindars and told them, every year we need so much money to run the administration of India, and how much you collect we are not bothered, but this is the amount you have to give every year to us. And they empowered them. If the farmer was unable to pay, then you could take his wife's jewels away as payment. If she also had finished with her jewels, then you could take the land of his brother. And it was a total totalitarian system that had been introduced, and slowly agriculture sunk to its bottom, where it became a sector without any resources. In 1947, instead of adopting the Soviet model, which was to extract resources from agriculture and use it for industrialization, had we, as Mahatma Gandhi and Sardar Patel wanted, focused on agriculture, today we would have been not only an agricultural power, but we would have been also an industrialized nation by the resources generated in agriculture, which would have become available. So these are missed opportunities, so we should miss it now. And there are many innovations that will go to help us to make this agricultural revolution. We have already told you desalination of seawater gives you unlimited access to water. This country is so, God has been kind, He has made you into a peninsula, so there is Indian Ocean all around you and unlimited supply. We have 60% of the world's thorium. Uranium is being exhausted, it will disappear from the world in 2050, and the whole world will then go to thorium. And if we today finish doing the research and development necessary for converting thorium into uranium and use it in a reactor, then we have this vast resources, the world's 60%, to build power plants all over our country and generate a huge surplus of electricity. So, for all this, we have this great advantage of what is called the demographic dividend. We have a young population, 50% of our population is below the age of 20. 75% of our population is below 35. If this under 20 population is given world-class education, and that is not difficult anymore because of all these internet-based educational system that's come, that will enable you to study in advanced universities of the world through the computer. And for a computer, you just need a battery and a mobile Wi-Fi unit. And even religious can participate in this in this education. That kind of transformation, if our younger generation is given and then made into entrepreneurs, then I think, there is unlimited possibility for our country. Therefore, how should we focus our policies, and is it doable? This is the second question I would like to address. First of all, this country's uniqueness is that the rate of savings, or let's say rate of investment, is something like 80% due to the household savings. Only 3% due to foreign direct investment. every day we have so much publicity for foreign direct investment. But its contribution to the total kitty is only 3%. 80% is by your households. This country particularly has to be thankful to the women who have been saving money which their husbands would otherwise would have squandered and put it away for their children's education. That money is the thing that has been running your economy. And that has to be encouraged now. And that is why I'm saying to you today, if I'm in government, I'll do it within 1 week. If I'm not in government, I'll do it within 3 years. The only way to encourage people to save more today is by abolishing income tax completely. Rural incomes are not subject to income tax. Agricultural income tax is 0. There is no income tax on agricultural incomes. Rich people don't pay much tax because they got chartered accountants, you know that. Poor people are outside it. It's this middle class. This middle class, young professionals, salaried persons, they are the ones who are paying the income tax. And the system has become so cruel that even if you honestly give an account, still the income tax officer will harass you and give you a lot of trouble. This corrupt income tax system should be scrapped. People say, where will the revenue foregone come from? How much is the income tax revenue? 2 lakh crores. 2 lakh crores is nothing today. One auction of the 2G spectrum gave you 4 lakh crores this year. And that also, of course, because of my petition, scrapping the licenses given and made them auction it. Now this is unending because after 2G you got 3G. After that you got 4G. And soon 5G will come.
Yes.
And then elections will come, then you will give us another term, so we will find more ways of finding. So I am saying to you today, what this income tax income you can get by other means. But look at the other side, the money that people will save, and if you give 9% for 3 years, fixed deposit, people are not going to spend that money. We are not big spenders in India. We will deposit it in savings. And that fund will then be investment. The investment will produce production. Production means growth. And through the indirect tax system, you will get more than you lose through the direct tax system. And I was surprised to find that out of 2,761 commodities subject to excise tax, 21, only 21, the first 21, gave you 90% of the excise tax revenue. So why have it on the remaining? Remove it and tell them to lower the prices. So there are many ways in which this can be done. But I would say the first and foremost thing is we have to raise the level of investment. Presently it is running around 32-33%. It's fallen from the 36% it was. It should go ultimately to 40%. 40% of your GDP should be the rate of savings, rate of investment. And if it's 40% and your capital output ratio is 4, which is now 4.5, you can reduce it by being more efficient in the use of capital. 4, then 40 divided by 4 is the rate of growth that you get, that is the formula, and that is 10% per year. 10% per year for 10 years means you will eliminate poverty. With 7.5% you will not be able to do it. You will not be able to remove unemployment, you will not be able to remove poverty. But with 10% for 10 years, you can do it. So the outlook is within reach. And therefore, I would begin by saying that our focus should be on how to raise our level of investment. The second thing is, that we now need to focus on agricultural exports, which means every district must have a small airport. It should have cold storages. And they should be able to send this into the, be able to send it as either air freight or by ship freight. So you need an infrastructure. And infrastructure means good roads. All these things can be done without having to tax people. Because for infrastructure, if you print notes, it will not be inflationary because it's producing assets. Only if you print notes and it goes into your hands and then you go to the market to buy something, then only it becomes inflationary. So I would say that in our country today, it's wrong to say where the money going to come from. Printing notes per se is not anti-growth. It depends on where you use that money. And if you use the money on government expenditure, of course it will be inflationary, be waste. But if we use it for creating assets in the country, then it will be a great boom for our society. I would also say that this dependence on imports for oil, we have to sooner or later find alternatives. Many countries today are working on how to use an alternative fuel in the automobile, not petrol, not diesel. But the most favorite alternative is now the hydrogen fuel cells. Research is going on in Israel, research is going on in Japan. Indians have done sporadically research on it. But if we give a focused attention, it will be possible now in future to have cars which fit in a battery based on hydrogen, and that hydrogen generates the energy for the car by an electric impulse. So over the night you plug in the car to an electric socket, and in the morning it is ready to go 350 kilometers without any petrol, totally pollution free. Toyota has already decided to sell these hydrogen fuel cell cars, and sometime this year you will find Toyota coming out with these. We should therefore go in for that. Similarly, we have rivers which are flooding every year, and we have rivers which have no water, like Kaveri or Vaigai in Madurai. So what we need to do is to create a water grid, and means dig canals and connect them up. And that can be done. If that is done, then surplus river waters, for instance, Godavari is 87% going into the ocean. So is Krishna. In Kerala there are 46 rivers, and 96% of their water goes into the Arabian Sea. So this water should be put into a grid, which means you dig means creating employment, and then it passes through places which have never seen water, like Rayalaseema and Andhra. So there is a huge potential there for creating a resource which will solve the problem that many countries are going to face, and that is a shortage of water. This is another thing that can be easily done. Then to lower the capital output ratio I talked to you about, the efficiency in the use of capital, we have to get rid of corruption. Can corruption be got rid of? Well, it could have been got rid of, but that doesn't mean in the next 3 years we can't get rid of it. Most important is there are 120 lakh crores in foreign secret accounts abroad. 120 lakh crores means how many? 60 times the income tax revenue of the government of India. Can you get it back? Yes, there are many ways of getting it back. One way is the German way, which later on the French copied. The German chancellor once discovered that her senior officers who are having illegal accounts in Liechtenstein's neighboring country. So they asked Liechtenstein, please give us these names and their accounts. So the Liechtenstein king said, I can't do that because this is something which our business depends on and will be finished if we do that, if we break the secrecy. So Merkel then authorized that German officers locate the senior-most officer of the Liechtenstein bank and offer him a bribe. He settled for $500 million plus US citizenship and a US passport, plus plastic surgery to change his face. And on that basis, he gave the entire records of the Liechtenstein bank in CDs to the government of Germany. Germany then downloaded these CDs and found that there were 23 countries' citizens who had secret accounts in that. So they wrote to 23rd country, of course, to Germany. So the 22 countries, they wrote letters saying that your citizens have secret accounts in Liechtenstein Bank, they are ready to give you details if you want, please inform us. Of these 22 countries, 21 countries immediately replied and sent their ambassador and tried to collect these CDs. One country refused to reply. And that, of course, was India, of Manmohan Singh. And Supreme Court, we filed a case in Supreme Court. In the Supreme Court, we have got it back. And these names are yet to be made public. I hope they will be made public in the coming. You know who their names are. I don't have to tell you, but we need to know it officially. The other method is, and of course the French also did that with Hong Kong, Shanghai. The second method is the American method, which I like in some ways. And that is, they found that 5,621 citizens of America had illegal bank accounts in Union Bank of Switzerland and Credit Suisse. So the American authorities found out that Union Bank of Switzerland and the Credit Suisse had a branch office in Washington. So the FBI agents visited both these offices and said that our citizens have illegal accounts in your bank and we want details of the same. The bank officers said, no, this is against our secrecy principle, we can't do it. So that evening the FBI arrested all the senior officers of the two banks and put them with criminals in their jail system. Within 24 hours, Switzerland government said, why are you doing this? You want these 5,621 names? We'll give it to you. And that is the way it got it. In the city of Bombay, you have Union Bank of Switzerland office and Credit Suisse. And I would like our government to do the same. But ultimately, when I spoke to the Prime Minister, he preferred this last method, which I'm going to tell you. And he said, you give me a note on that, which I'm preparing to give to him. And that is the United Nations method. The United Nations in 2005 passed a resolution. It's called the Convention on Corruption, where they said that world over, there are 70 countries which are practicing illegal banking or secret banking. And if any country passes a law in their legislature that the citizens of their country holding accounts in the banks of these 70 countries, their bank account is hereby nationalized, then the United Nations will use its offices to see that these accounts, their names and the money in it are transferred to the country which does this. So Egypt did it for Mubarak and got the money back. Libya did it for Gaddafi, got the money back. Same thing with Philippines for Marcos. So we need Parliament to pass a law. And in the Parliament in this session, you can have a ordinance also, and pass the law and then ask the PM, the United Nations to give you this. So I'm hoping that the notes that I will give to the Prime Minister in a few days will translate itself into a law, into a legislation, and then we hope we can get all these countries to give our money. That is the vision. Why didn't we do it all this time? Well, because Mr. Jaitley is a lawyer, and he was a little sensitive to the fundamental rights of those who had accounts there. So he did not take this route. But now the PM says this will become an important issue for us. We have to do something about it. So I am telling you, where is the shortage of resources? This is a wrong notion that India lacks resources. The thing is how to get it and to identify it. I've given you two sources, and some of it you have to do it by encouraging people to give you resources. If you abolish income tax, people will give you money through the banks by fixed deposits. So we don't need to depend on anybody else. So therefore, if I were to say in short, how to lower the capital output ratio, be efficient in the use of capital. Why are we not efficient? Because of corruption. And if you can fight corruption, the best way to fight corruption is catch a few people at the top and put them in jail. Then everybody will say, if it can happen to them, then it can happen to me. And that is why I'm after Ms. Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi who are jail. And in National Herald, by the time Diwali comes, I'm sure that they will be finding their way to prison. I've already made them stand as accused and take bail in the Patiala house. And I hope to see them. There's nothing personal in this. They have looted our money, and I want it back. And I want them to pay for it. And of course, they'll have good company because Mr. Chidambaram won't be very far. So I'm telling you, the outlook for India, because of its potential, is such that you may not believe it till you see it happening. I remember when we used to grow at 3.5% per year, because of the Soviet model, the communists tried to cover it up by saying this is the Hindu rate of growth. It's a communist rate of growth, and they put the blame on the Hindus, because the Hindus have a broad shoulder, they can accept all these things all the time. But the fact of the matter is that when I used to say in those days, and I wrote a book on it, that India can grow at 8 to 10% per year, they laughed it out as unrealistic and preposterous. But indeed, in 5 years of Narasimha Rao's tenure, we grew from 3.5% all the way to 9%. And poor Narasimha Rao, his only fault was that originally when he was made the Prime Minister, there was an expectation in the Sonia Gandhi family that he had 3 bypasses, and therefore he may not live 6 months. And during that 6 months, the minority government will be converted to a majority government, and then Sonia Gandhi will become Prime Minister. The problem was that Narasimha Rao's health began to improve as he became Prime Minister. And that was held against him. But we have recognized him, and we are intending to build a memorial for him in Delhi. Congress party objects, saying that we are grabbing all their Congress icons. But they never cared for them. Sardar Patel. When I was minister in 1991, Chandrasekhar told me, 26 तारीख आ रही है, किसको भारत रत्न देना कुछ idea है? So I said, let me see the list. And who have all got it and who have not got it. I was surprised to find that Sardar Patel's name was not in the list as late as 1991, and and it was the Chandrasekhar government which gave Sardar Patel Bharat Ratna. So if we appropriate Sardar Patel, we have a right. So I am saying today to you that this country, when it does it, then people think it's ordinary. Today 7%, 8% is ordinary. But in those days when you are doing 3.5%, we couldn't believe could do it. Gandhi used to say many times, the British used to say, we leave India, there will be chaos. And most Indians believe that. And then Gandhi began saying, so what if we collapse? It is our country which will collapse. We don't need you, you go. We will take care. But we have functioned as a country, as a democratic country. It is one of the few countries which hasn't broken up. Pakistan broke into 2, Soviet Union broke into 16, Yugoslavia broke into 4, Indonesia has broken into 2. This country has kept its integrity, it's kept its democratic structure, and today we are poised for growth. I am saying that this self-confidence you have to have, that our outlook is extremely bright, and it just requires certain policy changes post-election to be done, and that is going to happen because of the personality of Mr. Narendra Modi, who is so action-oriented. Now I would like to come to the remaining part in the time available, and that is about the political outlook. You know, this election, last election, after what, some 33 years or something, after 1989, 2016, it's about 30 years, a little more than 30 years. The country got for the first time an absolute majority party. And how did this happen? Definitely one of the important factors was Mr. Narendra Modi's personality and conviction that what he has done in Gujarat, he can replicate to the world. But there was also a disgust in the corruption that had taken place in the country. And the people wanted to teach those who were corrupt a lesson. But there was a third aspect, which is a new aspect for Indian politics. And it is a long-lasting aspect, provided we nurture it properly, because it can get out of hand also. And that is, for the first time, the BJP, which never got more than 21%, got 31% of the vote, because many people broke caste lines and voted on the principle of one India, nationalism. Some people say Hindutva, whatever you say. But it was rising above your castes, rising above your language, rising above your region, and voting as an Indian. And that principle, if it continues, and the younger generation looks like it is like that. Today our younger generation is one of the most nationalistic younger generations we've had in history. And therefore, that will ensure, whatever you may say, in 2019, BJP will get majority once again, and we will have another 5 years. So politically, I think stable government is possible. Otherwise, nobody else can give stable government. Congress is cracking up. They don't even know who should succeed in Sonia Gandhi now. Every day we're saying he's coming. But he's mostly in London, he's not yet coming. And sometimes they say bring Priyanka, sometimes they bring Mr. Vadra. God knows, they are very background that they are not able to decide on their leadership. Other parties are regional parties. And therefore, if you want a single party majority, and you think that in these 5 years and the elections are there, that we have done the work. But one thing I can say we have done in 2 years, nobody has been so far been able to accuse any of our ministers of corruption. This is the first time that you have a situation where it is so. Therefore, if at the end of in 2019, I am pretty confident that we will get 5 years more to implement and finish implementing our program. So from that point of view of a stable government, the outlook is very good. But we face a major problem of international terrorism. And we are going to come to face with it. We know that the source of the major part of our terrorism in our country is Pakistan. And the problem with Pakistan is there's no point in talking to Pakistan, because there the elected government, nobody listens to. It is a dummy government. There the real government is the army, the ISI and the Taliban, or other terrorist organizations, Lashkar-e-Taiba, etc. And therefore, how do you deal with this Pakistan? This is a question that is going to be an important part of our strategy. Because Pakistan, if it becomes a rogue state, it is bad for us. If the ISIS is able to take over Pakistan, that becomes another danger. And therefore, we have to look at some ways to meet this threat. Well, Pakistan, of course, is that we today know as Army, ISI, and Taliban, is essentially Punjab. The other parts of Pakistan are not in synchronization with Islamabad. Balochistan wants to separate. Sindh wants to separate. Afghanistan also wants to separate. So Pakistan is a state which looks like a failed state, and anything may happen at any time. Therefore, we need to build some alliances by which we face, just as the world faced Hitler's threat, we have to find a way to face the threat of terrorism. It's a very serious issue and problem. And if it becomes individualized terrorism, it becomes worse. Look what's happening in America and Orlando. It's an individual who has done it, but look at the damage he has done. So I think we have to pool resources. Certainly, America has got the military power with which these terrorist forces can be fought. But they don't have the stamina. The moment the casualty rate increases for American soldiers, the Americans want to get out. They did in Vietnam, they did in Iraq, they do it in Afghanistan. It's really countries which have large manpower which can fight this terrorism. And therefore, while we may align with the United States on terrorism, but we have to find commonality with many other countries. And this requires a great deal of diplomacy. One of the things that we have to do is somehow persuade China to see the danger that Pakistan represents. Is it possible? In my opinion, it is possible. I've led with the Chinese for many years. Just come back after a tour of Kailash and Mansarovar and got some, I hope God has given me a boon to give some more fights to various people. But the fact is that they are, in China too, they are concerned about terrorists coming from Pakistan to Xinjiang. And the same way today, with successful diplomacy, the Prime Minister has brought Iran on board. And while maintaining our friendship with Israel, that's a non-negotiable friendship. We have cultural affinities with Israel. But despite our friendship with Israel and Iran, knowing that, the Iranians have agreed to collaborate with us and Afghanistan to build a new port which will counter the Chinese port of Badar. So, same thing tomorrow, if we can have military relations with with Indonesia, then the Malacca Strait is something that comes under our control. Like Suez Canal, then nobody can take their freight traffic through Malacca Strait without our permission. And the Chinese, 90% of their trade goes through that. That's also a pressure that builds on China. So I would say today, politically, I don't see any problem within the country of a stable government. And I think that stable government is the BJP government. But I do see a problem that we have to face in concrete terms of what to do about this terrorism. And that is something that requires great deal of attention, and I'm sure that we also, in our government, people will be interested in working on it. I think there is no other essential political problem we have today. Parliament is functioning well. And ever since I came to Rajya Sabha, we have been passing bills without difficulty. Because previously we were on the defensive, but after I came, we went on the attack. And they have more things to hide than we. So I'm waiting for the latest session to see all these people who have already got one case or the other registered against them, Chidambaram and Kapil Sibal and all these new people who have come. But Congress is no more a central force in our politics. And it's basically regional parties. And regional parties, we have no difficulty in coming to an understanding for running the parliament. And therefore I see no internal political problem in our country. What I see is the problem of terror which we have to solve. So in sum what I am saying is, economically we have overall perhaps the performance is better than the past, but that's not good enough. We have to address this problem of small and medium industries. We have to address this problem of the people of India suffering under this inflation, as well as the fact that their everyday prices are being raised on petrol and diesel and so many other things, or taxes being imposed on people which will only harass them, like this jewelry tax. I never knew why we had to put this tax on, excise tax on jewelry people. Or many other taxes. These have to be, we have to move away from that regime of taxing people to raise revenue. To find other alternative means. After all, not only 2G spectrum will give you money, coal allocations will give you in one auction will give you 11 lakh crore rupees. And that auction has not taken place yet. And when that comes, you get more resources. Resources is not a problem, the question is how to raise. I don't see any problem on the economic front. I see no problem with the political stability front. If at all I see a problem, I see the problem of terror and subversion of our country from internal forces. That is something that we need to focus on. Thank you very much.